So today's topic is humanizing data science. So, like, what is meant by humanize? So, the data science by itself is not just another information technology. It is more about business principles. So, data science has this tremendous opportunity that provides to the business in helping us understand how we can derive and how we can drive the force to increase the customer values, increase the customer growth, increase the business value, increase the business growth, and also the same thing for the production abilities. So if you could see the data science outside of an information technology, there is more of a human-centric approach. And this human-centric approach enables us to connect with the business more closely, and because of that, we are also connecting with the customers. So the human-centric approach, if you could think data science from a human-centric approach, it uncovers some of the customers' untold needs. So not always customers give everything that they want, or they don't express the feelings, everything they feel when they are sitting on your platform, when they're using your product, or when they're using your services. So data science helps you to uncover those unarticulated needs. If you wanted to take a deep dive into that unarticulated needs, you have to have this design thinking approach. So design thinking approach falls under these three core areas. One thing is you have to listen to the customer from an empathy standpoint. And then you have to take this back to your team, and that's where you have to do diverge before converge. Like each one of you are taking it to your table and you're articulating your ideas. Like there's nothing called bad ideas, there's nothing called good ideas. All the ideas needs to be tested. So all the ideas are put it onto the paper. Everybody in the team are given opportunities to explore ideas, and then when there's a multitude of ideas converged on a table, you are getting more successful results. And then you do a rapid testing. So those are the three core areas: customer empathy, diverge before converge, and rapid experimentations. So we are going to take a deep dive into how to make this happen before getting into working on the analytics, before working on the models. So that is what primarily we are going to talk about in humanizing data science. We are going to hit the major part of the data science in the beginning and in the end, but we are not going to hit about the analytics. I guess you had a workshop for that. We are on the modeling. So we are going to talk about how the business problem is a data science problem, and then how we have to present the data in a more useful way to the business and to the customers. So that is what we are going to talk about today. So the learning roadmap for the first 1 hour is defining the business opportunity. And to define the business opportunity clearly for the immediate needs, for the immediate future needs, you have to have a better communication with the stakeholders. So the more you communicate with the stakeholders, the more you empathetically listen to them, that is when the more your value, you're taking it back to the business. So we call it a SAM. I will talk about this a little more detail when we get into the slides. And then once you know the business problem, and then you're talking to the customers and the stakeholders, then you will align that to a data science objective. And then you do the analytics, and then you transform the problems. A little bit about myself. So my name is Santha Krishnasamy. I'm the founder of FourFront Insights. So FourFront Insights, we are kind of a startup studio, a little bit unique from what exists right now. So what we do is our mission is to help the startups who are being founded by non-technical founders, which means that founders who don't have any technical experience. They always feel very vulnerable in front of this rapidly evolving technology. So we help the startup founders to be more friendlier to the technology, for that we make technology more approachable. So we humanize technology. So how we do humanize technology is like we take their validated ideas, we convert that into a fully functional technology at a fixed cost, so that they are not like wasting a lot of money during the proof of concept and experimentation. And we keep that minimal by having students at the cutting edge of technology doing the execution. And we pair every startup on an AI, like an automated matching with the expert. The experts come from Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 1000 companies. So experts are paired to the startups, and students are paired to the experts, and experts devise the solution, and students execute it. So it is an AI-based platform. That's what we're building. We're already working with several startups. And so we are also a chief humanizing technology officers for a multitude of startups. So I also teach yoga and mindfulness on the sides. By academics, I'm an electronics engineer and an MBA graduate with a management credential from Harvard Business School. I've been working 18 years across diverse industries in multiple countries before stepping into the entrepreneurship journey. I have few of the certificates, and I enjoy a lot of traveling, and I will definitely visit Romania when everything, all the pandemic is kind of stabilized. I don't know whether it'll get over. Yeah, so enough about me. Let's talk more about data science. So the three main takeaways that you're going to take from after the first hour is defining the opportunity. Like every data science has to be connected to the business, which we talked about in the beginning. And then we are setting expectations to insight. We are not blindly swimming into the data. We are understanding, we are going in an entrepreneurial way in understanding the scope of work, understanding how it reaps value to the business. So that cost of acting on the insight should be less than the value that it brings to the business from the insights. So that should be your goal. And then the hierarchy of needs. Okay, let's dig into the step one. So defining a business opportunity. So business opportunity, if you wanted to define the business opportunity, you have to observe the business. So business always have a customers, right? Most of the business or majority of the business have customers. So business serves a customer. So what does the customer needs? What are the customer pains? What are the customers' impediments? Like what is stopping the customers to do certain things within our product, within our platform? So we have to understand that. And also, as a business, you have other elements that helps you to improve the business, to bring more revenue, to reduce the production cost, to keep the cost minimal on the marketing side, or understanding the competitive threats. Who are the competitors? Who are the new competitors coming into the business? So all of these would be useful for you to define that hypothesis or define that objective for the business first, and then pair it to the data science. So first we will understand the issue. That is a step one. And then the step two is deriving, like validating your findings. So in the step one, you were trying to find a lot of things that is near or present issues. Now, whatever you found during the step one, you have to validate it. So for you to validate it, you have to have this SAM approach, which means that the SAM is strategic and measurable, and material. So the strategical is basically you have to meet with the business strategies. What are the business development strategies and what are the immediate strategies? So you have to make sure that they're aligned with the business strategies. And then the actionable, is that the actionable that you're taking from the findings from the data science or the end result of the data science, is it actionable into the organization? And then the material. The material is the cost of you finding the insight should be less than the value you're providing to the value that's providing from the insight. So that should be your goal. So for this, you have to validate it. You also have to make sure that whatever the idea, the problems or issues or the analysis that you found is meeting to the key decision within the business. So like, for example, if you found that the customer is, the retention rate is very less on an e-commerce site, which means that you have to go and find out this, you have to nail out this key variable that's making them not staying back or coming back to the site often. So the scalability and sustainability has to be derived by a certain definite variables. So this is where, like, for example, there's a long delivery times. think yourself as an Amazon, and you are providing Prime membership to all your end users. And with the Prime membership, if they are, some of the Prime members are still having a longer delivery times, they are not going to come back again. So you're going to lose the retention right there. Or maybe inaccurate search results, for example, like Google. Like imagine you are a big fan of football games, and then you are sitting on another country and you are hitting Google search every time to see whether the match is started or not. Actually, the match has been started, but the Google search says that, oh, it has not been started. So that's an inaccurate search result. So this is going to impact the retention. So declining profit margin could be one of the reasons for you to validate that problem that you have been found in the step 1. So the step 3, I have a problem with my mouse. The step 3 is now defining that objective. What is the business initiative? This is where you will define it. So without the business problem, without the customer's empathetical response to the product or services, you can't really validate it. Once you validate it, now you're having this succinct idea of how to define this objective. What is your objective? Are you predicting a sales? Are you having a right inventory placement? Or you have to understand the query better to have a better result sets, better search results, or you are having the right customer insight. So for example, when you are having a product and when you wanted to make the product, when you're launching a product, and then the product, when it's hitting the market, the first day of the sales or the first week of the sales is very critical to understand how it is going to roll into the market further on the later stages. So for you to understand the first week of sales, you have to identify the customer's needs. You have to identify what features you're providing to meet the customer needs. For that, you have to first talk to the right customer. Not all customers that's in the market are your customer. So you have to understand who the right customers are and what are the actual needs. Like only 1% of the people are looking for a red product, red color. Like imagine you have a water bottle and only 1% of the people really care about the color of the product, but majority of the people cares about how cold the water is kept, or have a facility to put the straws in. So you have to really see whether it is an outlier or it is an actual need. So you have to define this to a very near opportunity for the business or a very near future opportunity for the business. And then you talk about the data science problem frame. So you would not even touch about what kind of models you're using, what kind of data science tools are you using, what kind of wireframe are you using, until you understand the business needs, the customer needs, what is the business strategies for the present and the near future. Without that, you can't really nail down the data science problems. So that is what we are trying to understand here, how to take this data science and connect it closely to the business, so business is making it more usable, more approachable, to reap values back into the business. So some of the data science wireframe that you can use is like, after defining the objective function, you can test it. Like you can test whether your assumptions are right or wrong. To test the assumptions to right or wrong, you can measure the accuracy of the data. And then you can do data pre-processing. And before doing the data pre-processing, you have to make sure what kind of variables is really impacting to your objective function. Like, for example, if you wanted to increase the sales by 5%, and by end of 2021, you cannot bring in some of the irrelevant variables into the place. You have to bring in some of the very closely related variables, like, okay, how is the sales going for this year? Like, what is the predictions that we can do based on what is the customer needs? Like, how are the customers liking the product? And what are the other external factors like political influences, pandemic influences that are affecting the sales? So related variables you have to select to make sure that you're using it during your decision-making process. And then you build the model, and then you tune the model for false positive and false negative. So the more you tune the model, you're reducing the cost of being impacted by false negative and false positive. Okay, I feel like I'm just talking to the screen. Do you guys have any question? How are you liking so far? Do you guys want a message? Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we are going to define the data science problem. So based on your customer findings, based on how the customer is empathetically reacting to the product, you would now have a list of problems listed, the most valuable problems. Imagine you have about 20 most valuable problems based on the stakeholder interviews and customer interviews, and now you have to derive the business initiative or the hypothesis. So when you are defining the business hypothesis, make sure that you're still aligning to the business development strategies. Make sure you're aligning to the customer needs. So you have to, after every process of the data science, when you're defining the data science problem, to collecting the data, identifying the variables, always make sure that you're going back to the step one, making sure that you're aligned with the business goals, aligned with the value reaping back to the business, aligns with what the customer needs are. So there is a step-by-step process. Let's do the first step. So defining the objective. So you have found that there is a problem in the business. Let's take that you are running a restaurant. And because of this restaurant, because of the pandemic, the restaurant business is not doing well. Now, with the minimal investment, how can you make this restaurant more profitable, or even at least gain the business back? So that is your objective. So your sales went down by 2019 because the pandemic hit, which is a very unexpected very unexpected scenarios that you were not injected into your business decision process. You were not injected into the prediction process. Because of this, now you are re-predicting the whole growth scenario. And now you have an objective function. How can I increase the sales for the next 3 months starting 2021 or 2020, So your objectives has to be very close to the business present situation or to the near future situation. You can have an objective that is like 10 years ahead of the time. So you have to have it very close to the near or the present situation. So that is the need of having this data science. So the data science is basically helping you to evolve faster as the situation changes. So that's how the data science has to be linked into the business. So define the metrics of the success. Now, for you to increase the sales in the restaurant business, what is the metrics that you have to measure for the success, right? So, okay, if you wanted to bring more customers in the month of June of 2020, you have to make sure that how can I make this process more viable without bringing the customers into the restaurant, but still making this delivery frequently happening, like curbside pickup, for example, or online delivery, or partnering with a delivery company like that. So what is the metrics for success? And then how are you taking to the business, the value for it? And then identifying the stakeholders. So without the stakeholders, you can't really derive a lot of things in the data science. So you have to have this customer personas. You have to have a storyboard with the talking to the stakeholders. Okay, if a scenario A happens, what is the step-by-step activities that you do to derive goal, to get into this goal? So you have to, for you to understand that, you have to talk to them. And those are the things would be very useful for you to increase the value for the business, to the business. Just give me a moment. I am running out of the charge, sorry. Okay, so identify the telemetry. So now that you know what you wanted to bring it to the business and what is the measurement, what is the success metric that you want to measure, and then how it brings back the value to the business and who the stakeholders are, now you have to identify where the data is being collected. So is there telemetry is basically automatically somewhere the data is being collected. It's either a public source data or a private source data, or it comes from an embedded system, it's coming from an IoT system, or whatever. You have to identify where the data is sitting. And this is basically helping you to see whether the data is achievable for you to do the prediction. And then you do identify the key business decisions, and then you see whether there is any appropriate data source, because not all data coming from the public and telemetry is an appropriate data source for your hypothesis. And then understanding the risks. So what cost of having a false negative, and what is the cost of having a false positive? So you have to understand the risks, and you have to integrate certain kind of risks and mitigation plans into your data science, into your science process. So all of these things can only be done by talking a lot to your stakeholders and then marrying it to the objectives. So we are going to go into a step-by-step scenario with a case study. So imagine you're the head of an iPhone planning team, and you're asked for the number of iPhones, which is both all three small, medium, and large iPhones, to be available on the launch day, which is September 15th, 2022, at all Apple stores across the globe. Now, how will you solve this, and what questions will you be asking? So I'll be going into step by step, and I'll be asking a lot of questions, so you can put your answers in the chat. So what would be the objective function here? Can anybody hop in and tell me what would be the objective function here? So what are you predicting here? That's right. You're predicting how many number of phones you would be able to sell during the launch. So either on the launch day, or on the launch week, or on the launch month, right? So that is your objective function. Predict first day or first month sales globally for all these three models. We just, like, do you see that the scenario by itself has been very complicated right now? You have to predict it globally. And like, for example, some of the small phones are like, small phones are sold more in Australia, big phones are sold more in Eastern Europe. And so when there's different scenarios and different likings of different customer likings for each of the style of the phone from each of the zones in the on a global market, you have made it complex. And then on top of that, you're adding three different kinds of phones onto your model. So you just made this whole thing complex. So you have to make sure that you're applying this in a very design thinking approach. You have to have a prototype model. You have to do a rapid testing. So unless you're not doing this, you won't be able to do a very close prediction. So what would be the metrics here? If you're predicting the first month sales globally for all three different phones, what is the metrics for you to measure here for success? Can anyone tell me? Like, how would you measure whether you have good enough prediction? Everything is good enough. There's nothing like, and there's always a might. There's nothing like should or, okay, good, number of sales. So did we make enough? So did we make enough for the first month sale to happen? Like, what do you think of having a scenario like you made too much product or you made too less product? Let's go back to too less product. Do you think that making a too less product for your launch would affect the business? Anyone? Like, is there an impact? Is there a negative scenario? There are consequences that comes in because you did not make enough product for the first day sales. might anger the customers. True, you might anger the customers. So there is a loss, right? There is a loss of sale that happened because there was no enough product that has been in stock. So, but sometimes if you are mitigating that risk in a more intelligent way, you might increase the price of the phone. Very true. You might increase the price of the phone. Yes. But you can mitigate this risk by not angering the customer, but not annoying the customer, is by having a pre-launch site or a site where you are able to help them order the phone that they can receive it after 10 days or after 2 weeks. So you can give them some mitigation plans in place. So yes, there are some impatient customers that need the phone right away, and there is a point of loss for you. But then there's also some like you can capture majority of the audience that you are looking to buy the phone by having this pre-ordering system. And also by having a pre-ordering system, you can have this prediction much closer to the reality. It is never to the reality, but you can have a much closer to the reality. Nice. Yeah. They're on top of the product line. They're pretty good in doing that. Define the business value. Okay, what is the business value here? While you're predicting the sales for the launch, for the first day or first month, for all the 3 phones globally, and your success metric is, are we making enough to meet this prediction? What would be the business value? Anyone? So the business value is your idea behind all of these things is you maximize the first week sale. Imagine you are a movie producer. You are producing an animated movie. What is your business value? Your business value, yes, you have to have a really good actors and actresses on the system. Your screenplay has to be good. Your direction has to be top notch and everything. But what is your business value? Everything falls back to how are you bringing this money back by delivering the value to the customers. So that is measured by, for a movie producer, it is measured by the first day when it hits the screen, right? How many people are coming to watch the movie? The first day, first week is where the blockbuster hits, right? So you're maximizing the week 1 sales by itself will be a marketing element for you to increase the sales for the further month, for the further year. And that's how iPhone does, right? Now, who are the stakeholders? Can you guys help me identify who would be the stakeholders that we need to talk to have this prediction good enough for the business to have this, to make the product? Who would be the stakeholders? Just one. We have a lot of time. I can't wait. Yes, for sure. For the startup, it is investors, but investors are providing money. Investors also look for the stakeholders, customers. Yes, they should be the drive for the prediction. Sorry. So, but for the customers, for you to go talk to the customers, you can't talk to globally all different customers. So there are proxy elements to you to talk with the customers. They are the launch team. Like previous year, when there was a new product launch, how did the launch team gather the information? How did the launch team see anomalies? How did the launch team see that different people reacting to different things about the product, right? And then the vendors. each of the, as I said, in Australia, small phones go faster. In Eastern Europe, large phones go faster. So vendors will help you understand these different variations across different zones globally. So you have to talk to the vendors to understand that you have implemented those elements into the prediction. And then the sales, the past sales, the historical data, and then the operations. So iPhones, you have to give this breathing space when you're predicting and when you're producing. There needs to be a breathing space when you're launching in 2021 September, and then you're predicting in June. That is too close. Your prediction may not be right. So you have to have this breathing space to give this prediction a little more good enough concept. So you have to, because your operations will be done in Taiwan or done in China, and so you have to understand that your prediction and your operations are aligned. And then the services. Why are services needed here? You haven't sold the phone yet. Why are the services here? The services are here because these are what you're being more proactive. All the phones that has been manufactured has to come to all of these zone service centers, and they have to activate the phone before they're making the sale. So the services, you need to talk to the services. For example, last year, some of the scenarios that could have happened from the last year launches, like the services team did not have enough people and the people were lined up for 1 hour to get this activation happen. That is a scenario that needs to be solved this time. So there is a rapid movement between the purchase and the activation. So those are the stakeholders. So when you're talking to the stakeholders, have them talk about the personas, like what is their daily life, things they want to do, what are the things they daily do, what are the things that they cannot do because there's nothing in place. So ask them a lot of questions. Don't have a judgmental, don't judge anything that they're saying. Have a very unbiased listening process. And that is when you would be able to take this empathetical reasoning back to the data science problem. Now, identify the key variables. What are the key variables that is required for you to make this prediction good enough? Any one variable? Past sales. Exactly. So the past sales could be one of the reasons to predict, but it's more also about the phone that is coming into the market as well. Like, for example, I have an iPhone 10R and the iPhone 10R is like shutting down often, or there is a very low refresh rate. So maybe that is one of the reasons that it has to incorporate. Like, what kind of features would make this sale happen to this required performance, right? So what is the refresh rate? What are the past launches sales? And then what is the differentiation between your existing iPhone and this new iPhone? Like camera pixels. Majority of the time, the cameras which have a good pixels get sold better because these days a lot of people want to take pictures wherever you go. The cameras, the phones are handy as a cameras. You don't need to carry heavy cameras all the time. And then the price point, like what is the price difference between the last year phone and this year phone, and connecting to all the external factors, like pandemic would be a reason that you may not be able to hit the sales with that high of a price point, or they are lowering the price point, or they're bringing feature, or they're increasing the value of the phone, or they're reducing the price of the phone. And then the markets, how are the markets reacting? Like, for example, when the Huawei phone was launched, there was this situation where the Android wasn't updating their operating system because of the political situation. Because of that, Huawei did not predict that into the model because it was an unknown scenario. They did not predict that into the model. And so the Huawei phone, the amount of Huawei phones that was produced did not make the sales. So this is art and science. So you cannot really put in unknown into the scenario, but you can give a breathing space. You can give a tolerance for unknown happenings, like plus or minus percentages. And then the timing, like for example, when the phone is launched in the September, when the school is starting, a lot of people will be getting the phone. Or when the phone is launched during the Christmas holidays, a lot of people will be getting the phone. So the timing for the time series analysis would help you, like the timing would help you understand whether this is the right time for the phone to be launched, or if you have been provided a timing, you can tell the business back like, hey, September may not be the right time for you to launch this product because of so and so scenarios. So what are the key business decisions? What would be the key business decisions with all of these things in place already? Anybody? So the key business decisions is how much inventory are we having? How much inventory they had last year, and less inventory or more inventory, how was it impacting the business? And now how are we stocking this? What is the stock plan? And then how are we making this journey for placing orders happening for the customers? Are we having a pre-order website, or are we having pre-order physical locations across the zones and across the zones globally, or what are we doing? And then how long does it take for us to stock the product when the hits higher? Like, we have to understand from a business standpoint, how can we make this prediction, make the sales happen to the prediction? And then identify the proper data source. So the data source comes from, obviously, from your past sales, but it also comes from your ownership data. Like, for example, what are the difficulties that they are having with the existing iPhone, with the latest launch of the iPhone, and how many people are satisfied with the latest launch? Is it an operating system problem, or it is by itself a phone aesthetic appeal? Like, there's a lot of things that you can get from the market research to have a better understanding of what kind of features can make this to the prediction. And then how much money are we spending on the market? So majority of the time, the cost of the iPhone by itself will be only 20% of the cost you're paying, 70% or 60% the marketing expenses. Like, how far are we marketing, and what are the different ways we are marketing? So those are the important scenarios that you have to take into consideration when you are coming into choosing the data sources for predicting the sales. And then the risks. What would be the risk you think it would happen here? Like, what kind of risks can happen? Like, how other things can go wrong here in your prediction? Anyone? Transportation would be one of the major reasons because of the external factors. The uncontrollable factors could be one of the things. Controllable factors is like, okay, because of the pandemic, things are not moving between zones easily. And like, how are we having a production nearshoring, offshoring, or farshoring, or how are we doing that? Yes, that could be one of the reasons. Overproduce. Yes, the risk is overproduce. Like, if you are a startup and you made an overproduce, it's a huge risk, because the cost that has been spent on the overproduce is called a sunk cost. You cannot bring it back into the cash flow if you overproduce it. But in an iPhone scenario, sometimes because of the brand and the influence that they have in the market, the overproduce may not be a scenario, but still it is a scenario that needs to be incorporated. So quality and quantity delays might be one of the reasons. They have this 5C. I don't know whether you guys remember the 5C. They have this plastic casing, and it is very cheap. It is meant for students to use at the schools for like the schools and universities. And they were very cheap. They were one of the cheapest iPhones that they brought into the market. But they quickly stopped it because there was like a privacy issue happened because of a certain scenarios that happen in the market. So what happened is, like, whatever they built that 5C, the 5C was really good. And since the 5C sales was doing really good and there was a trajectory, they made more phones, they produced more phones. But then when there was a situation where there was a bomb blast, and then they used somebody who were behind the bomb blast, they used the 5C, so they had to get into the phone, so they have to have this breach, data privacy breach, like on from a defense standpoint. And then once this they had to give that data breach, they decided to take that iPhone back from the market because it was not Apple iPhone's ethical or principles. So when they took the iPhone C back from the market, when they have to just like chunk all the phones that they have produced. So those are the scenarios. They have to see what is the loss that comes from it. And also, when you have more people coming to buy the new phone on the launch day, and you weren't able to have all the phones in the stock, what is the opportunity cost? So the opportunity cost also varies from each of the demographic. So sometimes the opportunity cost would be much higher in certain demographic than the opportunity cost in another demographic. These are all like customer impatience, customers' emergency need, and all those things. So this is how you have to map it out before even you going and start digging into the data. So we are going to have this done by you with another case study. And imagine you are part of a Roseman Stores business analytics team, and you are asked to create a sales forecast for the 1,115 stores in Germany over a six-week period. So I'm just going to post a link here. You guys can take the Excel sheet from the Google, and you guys can start filling it in. I'll give you 20 minutes. Let me know if you're not able to access it. I just posted a link for the Google Drive. So it's more like an Excel sheet. I'm going to escape here. Okay. So it's an Excel sheet. Take this Excel sheet, maybe download it. It's requesting access. Okay. I don't know why it's requesting access. My internet is a bit slow. You can share. Oh, I don't know why I'm not able to share it. Okay, can you try it now? Could anybody please help me to see whether you guys are able to access? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so you would be getting an Excel sheet. So imagine you are part of the analytics team for a Roseman bookstore, and you are asking, you have been asked to predict the sales for across 1,115 stores in Germany over a 6-week period. Okay, you're doing a sales forecast over a 6-week period. Now, let's start with what is the description. Just a one word or a couple of words is fine. And then what is the key decisions needs to be taken here? Let's go one by one. Like, what would be the key decisions here? Okay, I'm just going to open up this. The problem here is you are a part of a sales analytics team and you're predicting the sales forecast for 1,115 stores in Germany over a 6-week period. I'm just going to put this back so you guys are having this as a reference. Welcome. So what would be the decisions here? That's right. You analyze the past sales and decide on the stocks, right? But what are the scenarios that you have to keep in mind when you are making that decision? Which is your, I'm going to put this back, which is your, you have to be a little more clear. Like imagine you're a Walmart, right? The first thing is Walmart has different kind of stores. One is a very simple store like any other retail store, and then the other one is a superstore, right? So the sales for the superstore would be a little bit different than the sales prediction for a normal store, right? And you have to identify what kind of stores you are talking about among the bookstores, right? And the other one is each of the stores, like imagine if you are a retail store, you won't be running a promotion across the global scale. The promotions are run for each of the stores separately. So if you are a store A and your other store is in store B and the store B is a superstore, what kind of promotions are you running for the superstore and what kind of promotions are you running for that demographic? Imagine for that demographic, there's a school starting up and people will be start buying more books. Imagine for this store, there is a senior citizen people, you're having a book club and then more people are coming and buying books here, right? You have to impact those scenarios. You have to integrate those scenarios into your decision-making process. So promotion, what are the store kind, and then what are the other stuff you have to, other scenarios you have to integrate. Like seasonal timings, right? So only on certain seasons the book sale will go up. Like for example, there was a famous author had a launch, or there was a really good book that a lot of people have said that this book is really good, and so the sales has been increased. The influential market. So you have to integrate that seasonal elements into it. Or it's a Christmas time. A lot of people are buying books to give gifts as a gifts to their friends and families. So you have to integrate those scenarios into it. So those are the very important decision-making process. One of the other important decision-making processes like competition. Like what are the other bookstores close by those bookstores? And what is happening in that bookstore? Is there a promotion, or is the book launched on the same store, same competitive store at the same time? Like you have to integrate all those elements into your decision-making process. Okay, and then let's come back to the customer value. So we start from the customer value. What would be the customer value here in this scenario? Anyone? Like your data science report has to be mapped to the customer value, mapped to the business development strategies. So what would be the customer value here? One of the things that can have here is like a book that your competitor is not having, your competitor's store is not having, you are having it, you increase the sales. And there's another one that you can bring the customer value here is approachability. You're having a Kindle version of it, you're having a video, audio version of it, you're having this ability to observe all the market, all the ways of acquiring a product, not just a physical paperback, but also a digital product, right? Or having a book club will make them to socialize, will make them to come and talk about, brainstorm about how the book has been written, or brainstorm about some of the ideas that the book has been expressing. So there is a customer value in here is like, one is easy accessibility. The second one is social element. Everything connects to a social element. Like imagine you are like a Venn diagram. Anything that you're doing, it has to have a social element in it. And you should be making money only in this common area. So your goal as a business is in one circle. Your social element has to be in the other circle. And this is how you should be making money out of this. So you have to always have the social value in it. So what would be the operational value here? Anyone? Think from a brick and mortar style. Like if you're having a brick and mortar style, what would be the operational value? Like how can you provide value back into the business during this prediction? Like you're forecasting a sale across all the 1,000+ stores in Germany over the 6-week period. What would be the operational value? The operational value that you're bringing into the store is stocking the right books. Like for example, there's one book is being influenced by the market, and if you don't have that book, there is a loss of there's a cost loss, right? So having the right inventory, having the right book at the right time, and having like being updated in the market will help you to bring those influential books ahead of your competitors. So these are the operational values you're providing it. So by having this operational value, you are having this proper risk strategies to meet the inventory needs, to meet the demand, and to meet the supply. Financial value. I mean, we all know increase in sales, bringing more money. What other financial values can it be? Like if you don't have a right inventory of the book, you are having a loss of sale, right? The customer coming back and the customer's friends coming back would be really low. And selling the old stock, yes. So the selling the old stock, you have to play in the strategies in the business and operations to make sure that the old stocks are kind of liquidated or in a different way, like a promotional aspect. So those are the things play into scenarios. So you have to, what would be the now to meet these decisions, to meet the financial, operational, and customer value, what do you think would be an impediment or a barrier or a challenge? So some of the impediments could be pandemic, competitor sales, that's right. And it's like some of the things that you cannot have science into the decision process. You should have intuition and art in place. So it's better you nail down all the scenarios here. That's right, the bad weather. And what could be the risk? Again, let's go back to the same risk that we were talking about, cost of false positive and false negative, right? What could be the risk here? poor transport in the store's net, no parking, having some of the risks like you have loaded up the stocks, but there was no parking lot, and so people are not coming. Or there was a construction surrounding around your bookstore, and you have a risk which you did not mitigate. So you have to integrate those known risks, and you have to also give some space for the unknown risks. Okay, I'm just hitting time here. Thank you so much for doing this. We almost came to an end. So good job. So I'm just going to quickly get into this exploratory analysis and see how she did it. Elena did a really good job. And we are going to see whether we hit all the scenarios to a closer extent. I don't know whether it's going to open up. Okay, take some time. Come on. Okay. I'm just going to scroll in a little bit more. And are you guys able to see? So the sales, like the past sales, number of customers, repeated customers, how many sales were open, what are the promotions, any stat holidays, any school holidays. Those were integrated into the decision-making process. So the sales on a given daylight, can they meet the sales? And then what are the number of customers walking into the bookstore in a given day? And then is there an indicate, we did not think about it, right? The indicator of a small light panel that says the store is open and store is closed was even impacting the sales. So they should have to have an indicator that the store is open or the store is closed, which is much visible from a further distance. And then the promotion, and then the stat holiday. Is there any holidays on a certain demographic specifically or across the entire Germany? And then the school holidays. So some of the scenarios that we did not even think through is that having a board which says open or close. And then they had this so competitive distance, like the store kind. Is it a superstore? Is it a small store? Is it has a book club in it? As it has a cafe shop in it? And all those scenarios, different stores are rated as a different store type. And then they have 4 different store models, A, B, C, and D. They did not talk about what A and B and C and D are. And then there's a competitive competition distance, like how far is the store, the competitor store, how far is it from this store? And then the competitor is open since how long? And how long are they open for the year? How long are they open for the month? And then what kind of promotion each of the store is happening? What are the promotion since the year, since the week? And then what is the promotion interval? Like they can run a promotion in the spring and then they can run a promotion in the summer, but like that, what is the interval between each of the promotions? So they have been taken into those kind of scenarios into play. Yeah, so we were pretty close in defining these, like this is called as canvas model for the data science. You're making yourself think like you are more like an entrepreneur. Each of the data science problem is now addressed as an idea, and how that idea has been validated, the proof of concept, testing it, prototyping it, and then having this feedback loop in place by talking to customers every single progress you are making within the steps. And then you are investing a lot of time in building this bigger model that can be automized. So hierarchy of needs. I don't need to really touch base about this. You had a different workshops talking about this, but I quickly go into it. The hierarchy of needs here is you have to, it all boils down to the psychological needs. And it's the same, written by Monica Rogati. So you first have to identify your business opportunity, your customer needs and your customers' issues, and then you have to go and start collecting the data for that. You have to align that data science objective with that business opportunity, with that customer value, and then you have to go dig deep into collecting those data. first you start with whether there's any external data associated to it, there's any past data, historian data associated to it, and then there's any data that you can generate using some of the cobbling together sources. And then you, like the telemetry type that, and then you move into cleaning that data. Like even if you see in that store data, Roseman store data, some of the year, they did not mention that as a year in the heading at all. Like the data did not had a header saying this is a year, but instead it said 2010.0. You would be wondering why a year has to be in a decimal. So this is where you have to do your due diligence in understanding that what kind of data is this. Like if a data is decimal, is it really a decimal data or it's an integer data? And how is this data connected to the key decision-making process? And what is this data named as? How is this labeled as? Majority of the time, the data, when it's thrown to you, will not have any labels to it. So you have to understand the business scenario to make sure that you are mapping those variables into the right data. For that, you have to talk to the stakeholders. Talking to the stakeholders is very crucial during this process. And then you do the exploratory analysis, identify outliers, you apply all the central theorem concepts, do this foundational understanding of data science, and then you do the aggregation, feature selections, and then you train the data, and then you apply different kind of models. So in your data science, 80% of your work is coming to understanding the business, collecting the right data, gleaning the data in such a way it's aligned to the business opportunities, aligned to the value. You're only doing 20% of the time the modeling techniques. So you have to spend a substantial amount of time in understanding the business and gleaning the right data. So we came into the last, came to an end to the first hour. So just a quick recap is it's the same thing, like have this predictable associated to the business problem, define the business initiative to the present or the near future. Don't have this business initiative defined for a longer time. And then there is always a science and the art combined to it. So your art and science comes like you have to be playing an intuition. You have to intimately talking to your stakeholders, your customers, and you also have to be making this whole process simplified so that your stakeholders are also thinking like a data scientist. And so for this, you have to have this design thinking approach. And then you can leverage the tools and techniques that's associated there for you to meet those needs. So set up the right pipeline for the data. Before setting up the right pipeline, understand the success parameters. And then you experiment, you learn, and you update. So it's an iteration cycle. Keep it very simple, lean approach, prototype it, or have this rapid experimentation, talking to the customers, and then bringing it back rather than sitting for almost 2 hours or 2 days building this analytics without knowing how the customer is reacting to it, or how the stakeholders are reacting to it, how the business operations and marketing is reacting to it. Any questions? I have a cheat sheet. If you guys want it, I can give it if you feel like my session is interesting. Any question before getting into the second session? I give a minute. If you have any questions, you can just place it in the chat, please. Yeah, I will. Anybody, any questions? Can we move on? Okay, data storytelling. So now you found the actual situation in the business and how you can make the data science a business based on a business principle, and how you can have this human-centric approach so that everybody are taking part in your data science journey. And you're making this more approachable in reaping it as a value back to the business, value back to the customers in a more actionable way. And it is related to the business development strategy that the business has laid in for the near term. Now, after that, you go and you clean the data, you run the analytics, you run the model. Remember, when you're doing this, you always have to go back to the step one and aligning that everything you're doing is connected to the business opportunity. But now there's a bigger issue coming for a data scientist. Presenting those insights, presenting those output of the model, presenting the way you have designed the model to the business opportunity. Now, this is the time for you to talk more. During the first process of understanding the business, understanding the customer, you were listening more, you were an active listener. But now it's time for you to take it back to the business. So there is a saying that there's somebody who always send about 15 megabytes of data to the higher level management every day, just 15 megabytes of data. And the higher level management, when they open it up, it's all data everywhere. They could not do anything out of that. They did not understand it. They could not even resonate with what they're thinking about for that day business growth or for the near business growth. Now, the data that you are using it to find the insights, to do the prediction, to derive the business value, has to be presented in such a way that the business can understand. And it has to be visually impacting, and it has to be more compelling to the business. Business will always listen only 30% of your time. You would have put a substantial effort in a report and visualization and everything. But the decision makers would be having only 30% of the time to listen to you. And if you are not able to convert that into a value in that 30% of the time, they're not going to really get back to the reports that you have built, or they're not going to get back to the work you have done substantially. So it's important how you present it, how you present your finding, how you present your prediction. So that is what we are going to learn for the next 1 hour, which is called data storytelling and building compelling reports. Okay, so data storytelling. Now you have this data and you have this visual. And I'm going to take this out of the full screen mode, and I go into so now you have a data and you have a visual. You have the data here and you have the visual. Now tell me what is wrong in it. I'll just give you a scenario behind this data and the visual. So this is a utility bill a customer received from a utility company. What do you see wrong in here? There is a data, there's a visual. What is missing here? Like, don't think too much. Just think very simple. And also one of the other things that I want, labels, exactly, the narratives. The narratives, it says 6:18, 7:18, 8:16, 9:16, 10:17. I was wondering, what is wrong in it? The order is wrong. That's what I was thinking. Is the order wrong here? Like, what does that do? Like, everybody will hit in this much cubic meter every day? How is this possible? So they missed the narrative. This is actually, the format is MMYY. So it's for the month and year. June 2018, July 2018, August 2016, September 2016. They simply did not have a label. Now that you have data and visual and narrative, now what is wrong in here? Now imagine you have data, you have visual, and you have narrative, which is this graph. What is wrong in here? Sorry, I'm having some transition time between moving, like zooming out and zooming in. So there's no red. What is being plotted? The order is wrong. Okay. So there is a data, there is a visual, and there is a super narrative here. The problem is, first thing, rule of thumb, too much color. Good work. There's too much color in here. And the colors in these pie diagrams are not related to these colors always. There is no red in there, exactly. The most brightest color here is red or pink, and it's not on the pie chart. And the very important thing is Never use a pie chart. There is a saying that a data scientist can only use one pie chart in their life and use it wisely. Pie charts can never tell anything to the business. They are one of the poor way of graphically representing a data. So now we know that there is a data, there is a narration, there is a visual, right? Sorry, I couldn't make it any more simpler, transitioning between it. So then with the data, with the narration, and with the visual, you're creating a data story. But then the data story has to have a logical reasoning. Once it has a logical reasoning, then people will start thinking. Once you make them think, you have to make them believe. That is ethos. So logos is basically logical reasoning. You're making them think, and now you're making them trust through the ethos. So let's go back to one of the graph. So there is a representation of the number of sales that happen across 4 different products. And there is a representation of those 4 different products. They just pick one product and they have made this graph. What is the problem in here, do you think? Can somebody say, like they are saying that the product D hit 1,150 times revenue, no year. Okay, good. What could be the other one? Okay, so if you see that they started with 8,000. So when you're starting with an 8,000, you are showing that the December sale hit so high because your October and November was very low, close to 8,000. You're cherry picking. This is called cherry picking. You are letting the customer see what you want to see. You wanted to show the customer, or you want to show the business, that the December sales for product D jumped 1,100%, 1,100%, which is not true, because you are cherry picking it. You're starting from 8,000 and you're cherry picking it to show that there is a huge leap in your sales. But if you go back and see here, the product D is like in the September, they had only 336. Sorry. In the September, only 336. In October, they had only 475. In November, they had 351, but December, they hit all of the sudden 4,035 for the product D. But actually, if you see the entire history, it is like after August, the sales went down, and then the sales regained in December. So they cherry picked to show that, hey, the product D sales went up, so the product D is doing good, which is not true. And also it has to be started from somewhere at a lower range rather than starting from 8,000. So this is a story of lies. You would not connect to the business in terms of having an trust relationship when you're presenting the business report. So that is what the ethos are. So if you don't with the trust, then they would not be listening to you any further. And that is when once you have this logical reasoning and you have this trust built with your graphs and your visualization, then you can go to the pathos, which is like connecting them to their heart. So the decision making often taken when you are able to connect them emotionally, empathetically. So remember, the data science problem starts with empathetically connecting to the customer and you empathetically delivering it to the business. So that is what pathos is. You have to build this emotional connection to what you have found in. But again, you should not be biased. You should be only stick to the numbers, and you should only be stick to the business opportunities. So So the importance of data storytelling is when you're identifying the value in the data, you have to make sure that you're communicating in this logos, ethos, and pathos way. And that is when you are converting that insights into actionable. Remember the first time during the first hour we talked about, right? That cost associated in finding the insight should be less than the cost, so less than the value that brings to the business from the insights. Okay, I'm going to skip all these graphs because we already saw it. Okay, so let's go back to this heart, right? The pathos. So here, what is the problem do you think it's what problem do you think it appears in this graph? So if you see that, they say that the product's revenue dominates, or like a single product's revenue dominates across all other products because the product C comprises more than 50% of the total revenue. This means that the revenue from product C is larger than all the 3 other products combined. Okay, they are more talking about product C here, and then the product C here in the pie graph is in orange color. But then if you see that the line graph, the linear graphs, the product D is in the orange color. Oh, it is so low in the chart because they are converted into percentage, which is another problem. They have converted the whole data into percentage. Like a percentages can, like if you start from 0%, not always a product will have a trajectory of 1000%. So you have to have this linearity in a more pragmatic, lower range and upper range, right? So here they have just put 0, 200, 400, 600. So always it's going to hit close to the ground. And then one product alone shows that it is 1000%, there's an improvement in by 1000%. So the way this whole graph is presented leads a lot of confusion. One thing, that there's a color mismatch, there's a product labeling mismatch between the colors, and then the data labeling is happening at a wider ranges, and so majority of the product is hitting to the ground, and then you are only showing what you want others to see, which is cherry picking, and you're bringing a story of confusion. So even though there's a logical reasoning, and then you had this trustability, if you are confusing the user or the business, they are not going to take any decision. The vertical scale is wrong. Yeah, the vertical scale is wrong. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Thank you. So the data storytelling. So the data storytelling has to be in a way that you have to demystify or simplify your findings in a more layman style that everybody can understand, the business can understand. You can talk in confidence intervals, and you can talk in errors, and you can talk about false positive and false negative. You can use those jargon words when you're talking to the business. You need to talk to the business in such a way that the business can take decision from what you're presenting, from what you have found. So explain the audience the value, and then you enlighten them with the visuals and data. And then you have to engage them with the narratives and visuals. So you first find the insights, you convert that insights into a simplified language, you use the simplification through data and visuals, and then you basically engage with them so that you are building that emotional attachment to them by having these narratives and visuals. And then this one will help them make actionable insights. So there is it is more like a storytelling, like a movie, the way the movie is taken. So you have to set up a ground when you are taking your insight into a boardroom, and you have a lot of business people sitting in the boardroom. You have to set up a background, like what are you talking about, what they can expect from this, and what is it related to the current scenario in the business. So you have to set up this background first, and then you have to start creating this hype, or you have to create this hype slowly until you reach this climax. So which is basically like when you set up the ground, the judgment kicks in within the business team. And they will be thinking that you're going to talk about A, you're talking about B, you're talking about C. They're going to think too much into their brain. Now you have to provide something that helps them to twist and turn their thought process into narrowing it down. So you have to start with this bigger funnel, and then you have to start narrowing it down with your reports in such a way that when you set up the ground, there is more, the more judgment comes into the business. You are narrowing it down, but the judgments into one single thing by giving a twists and actions, and then you are rising that scenario. You're creating that emergency. You're creating that immediate needs for them to listen to you. You're pushing them to the edge of the table, edge of the chair to help them listen to you. Okay, what is next? Why is my sales low? Okay, what happened to the customer retention rate? Why is it low? Okay, tell me more. What happened here? You are basically making them get more active. And then you create this climax. And after you create the climax, that's when you are helping them to say that, okay, this is the solution that I see from the inside. And this is the solution that you can act upon from a business standpoint. And we can test it. So this is how a report has to be when you're presenting to the business. So you have to keep it in such a way that it's simple, and it helps them to bring their attention to you. You're bringing that element that creates them a shock or an emotional element, and then you're telling them what happened, and then you're telling them what can happen to resolve the situation. And then you are having a discussion about how they can conclude this. So let's go back with the step-by-step approach. Let's say the step one, surprising the audience. So you have set up this environment. You're going to talk about, hey, the sales has been lowering and I don't know what happened. So I talked to the stakeholders. I have this business initiative to understand like why my sales is lower and how I can hit it back to the normal or have a trajectory to it. Like you're setting up this environment and then you're showing this graph. When you're setting up the environment, people will be thinking like, okay, I know what is happening. What is he or she is going to talk about it? Now, this is when you are going to bring in urgency. And you're going to tell here like, hey, between December 2015 and 2017, the product has been steadily rising up in a linear way. What happened in December 2017? All of a sudden, the sales went down. Now, there might be multiple products associated to this graph. There will be a conglomeration of every sales happening to each of the individual product. Now you are creating an urgency to the business team. Now they will be more interested to know, oh, what happened? Why did the sales went down? What product is this? Which made it go down? They're going to ask more questions. And that is when you're going to provide them the step two, which is rising heights. You're going to give, you created the emergency, you made them think. So you did this logical reasoning, and now you have to bring the trust, which is ethos. If you want to bring the trust, you have to have this clarity of helping them understand which product sales went down. So here you can say that the wholesale and retail are doing just fine as they were predicting, but the internet alone went down, and it steeply went down in December 2017. So now you are helping them trust you what you're saying. And then now you go into step three, which is still part of the step two. You're helping them understand more into the scenario why the internet sales went down. So the internet sales went down as like between December 2015 and December 2019, the cart rate abandonment was very stable at 6.9%. But all of a sudden, the cart rate abandonment rate went to 56% in February 2018. So now you have narrowed down narrow down their thought process. Though it started with the big, hey, our sales went down. Okay, our internet sales went down. Okay, the internet sales went down because there was an abandoned cart rate. Now you have built more trust or more connection to them. Now you're emotionally making them think. Okay, now you are explaining them to understand why there is more abandoned cart rate. Why did the abandoned cart rate went up from 7% to 56%? Because between February and March 2018, there was almost 94.4% there was no stock in the inventory. So some of the times I buy clothes at Zulily, and I have very little time in my life to go and buy shopping for my personal needs. When I am going to a retail clothing store and I am picking, and I have this defined decision, right? I have this initiative. I have ADHD, and everything has to go in a proper way. It's the same like data science designing thinking principle. That's how my life acts as well. So when I am getting into the retail store, online retail store, I know that I'm going to buy 3 clothes, and all of those 3 clothes, I know like what kind of colors I need. And now I put a lot of effort picking a couple of clothes and putting them in the cart. And then I did the 3rd one and I put in the cart. And then when I did the checkout, the cart said that, hey, the 2 of them is gone. Like, what is number gone? Now, do I have to spend more time again to search for 2 other clothes to replace this? My opportunity cost is now gone down, and they are slowly losing me. Their churn rate is going up because they are not helping me retain inside their retail store, online retail store. So once it hits that, hey, 2 of your cart has been gone because there's no inventory, somebody picked it up before you, I am not going to do further purchase or further shopping within that site. I'm going to close the window and I'm going to walk away. Because my problem is not an urgent problem. It's not a painkiller. It's a vitamin. So your cost of loss is much higher than the cost of gain for me. You see? So you have to make sure that all of those elements are implemented within your decision-making process. So this is where you are bringing that aha moment to them. And then you provide this solution. Hey, if you keep up that inventory at this right percentage that we are recommending through this data science prediction, your sales will go up in March 2018. So now you're giving them a pragmatic answer. So logos, pathos, ethos, everything worked during this meeting. You are going to get a lot of appreciation, and you're going to be a pivotal person in bringing that value back to the business. So that is how a data storytelling has to be. I'm just hitting out of time. So the good stories, you can see it through the map, through the deck. Now, data storytelling framework. There are different frameworks where you can do the data storytelling. Again, as a data scientist, your job is not to tell stories. But you are in a place where you have to make that you're presenting your insight in a more storytelling way. So you have to implement this entrepreneurial spirit in your data science journey as a data scientist. So there are multiple different frameworks to do. But remember, no judgmental, no biasing, stick to the business opportunity, stick to the customer problem, stick to the actual data, and stick to your insights. Like, don't lean towards what you're thinking, what your assumptions are, what your perceptions are. Don't never lean towards that. So the data storytelling framework can be 3 different kinds. So the first one is you're explaining them the situation, you're explaining them the problem, you're explaining them what could be the solution, and then you're asking them with a call to action, which could be a simple SPSS format with your markdown report that you created. This is the scenario, this is the problem within the scenario, and this is the solution that you can do based on the data and the prediction that we have done, and then this is the call to action. You can simply do that. Or you can do the process of creating story. So the process of creating story has to begin with a very simple, like diverge before converge. It's the same concept here. It has to begin with a very simple idea of putting your thoughts into a paper and pencil. Like once you get into a computer and you start typing digitally, you are aligned or you're inclined to put in a final report. Never start with a final report. And majority of the time, data scientists cannot think outside a data perspective. And this is where you have to be a little more pragmatic in twisting yourself, in changing your concept of making it think from a top bottom approach. Like start from the problem and then present your data to the problem, to the opportunity. Identify the story objective, which we talked about in the business initiative during the first hour, and then use the effective headlines. Don't use headlines that's not relevant to the problem. Don't use headlines that's completely not relevant to what you're saying in the end as a conclusion. Use a very effective headlines and then create a story roadmap. So since you have talked with the stakeholders and the stakeholders, you know what activities they do, you can create a story map based on that. And then concise and summary the conclusion. There's another way to create a data framework, which is more pathos, ethos, and logos. So keep it simple. Always keep it simple. Your internal report can have a very extended narration, which for your team to understand. But when you're going to the business, always keep it simple. And have this unexpected element into it. And then have this concrete evidence. Like what you're telling is make sure that this is what it is. Do a 2-time, 3-time, 4-time check. Align it to your business initiative, your customer problem. Understand it from a non-perspective manner. Don't put your perception into your understanding. And then credibility. If you are concrete and if you are keeping it simple, you are bringing a certain amount of credibility already. But just make sure you're talking with a proper fact. And then have this emotional element integrated into it. And then have the story element. So not all of those things will be integrated into a framework, but just one cannot make this framework successful. So you should have at least 3 or 4 elements in it, and keeping it simple, keeping it credible, keeping it emotional is always there. Okay. Next is the building compelling business reports. Now, the steps in creating the business reports is like you have to map it to that first ever discussion we had. Business initiative, business objective. I know I will be talking like a broken record here, but I wanted to make sure I'm emphasizing it. Your data science problem doesn't begin with your data. Your data science problem begins with your business problem, your business opportunity, what your customers are thinking. And then have this right KPI. In your graph, in your report, have this right KPI. Like, for example, if you want to increase the sale, talk about the product, talk about the past sale, talk about what happened, the elements that made the sale go down, made the sale go up. But don't bring unnecessary KPIs into it. Don't bring unrelated KPIs into it. And the KPI has to be very relevant to the audience. Like, don't talk about my error percentage is 0.05. No, your business is not going to understand about the error, and your error doesn't matter. And then the shared data insights with the story, and have the story element. Start with a summary, start with a problem, bring them that emotional impact to your meeting, and then you have the insights, and then you have the solution, and then you have this conclusion. Wrap it up with this whole thing again. So have this connection, have this structure. And then like not narratives people, there's only like 63% of the people will take decision only when you have this visualization in front of them. And the narratives can be a single word or dual word. It cannot have more number of words. People are not going to read through it. An email with a paragraph long email, I generally don't read it. But when there is a graph, I would take effort to spend 2 minutes to see what it is saying. and have this very well presentation. Don't have too much graphs everywhere. Like, don't have unrelated visualizations one after the other. Don't have this correlation matrix like nice and fancy for the business. So the correlation matrix, you can really nail it down with where the correlation exists, rather than having this bandwidth of between 0 and 0, like minus 0.4 to plus 0.4. And then digital interactive and technologies are more useful. Like, for example, either presenting the data can be different kind for different businesses. Like for a journalism, you have to present the data more factual. For infographic style, your data presentation should be heavily on design, on very less narrative, more less stat, but heavy on the design. If you're having an analytics data, it has to be more on the graphical representation of the data, and design doesn't matter. So if you're having a journalism, which I said, it has to be more narrative, more factual, and design doesn't matter. So each of those business situations that presenting the report has to be in more related to how the business reacts. So benefits of creating compelling business reports. So by creating the business compel reports, you are increasing the business performance. You're helping the business to have this threshold level. Okay, what is happening right now? Okay, what can be done immediately? And what not to be done immediately. So you're giving this performance report, and you're asking them to take a threshold, you're asking them to define the thresholdness, and so which is monitor and assess business performance. And then you're also helping them to understand how the business is doing. Okay, what new things I can add it to it, or do I have to just focus on what exists right now? So without your report, your business will not think anything beyond it. So that's what I said in the initial first ever, as soon as this workshop started. Your data science should be thought from a business discipline, because it derives and it drives the customer value, your operational value, and your business value. So only with your report, they can understand what is happening in my business, what is the health of the business right now, can I evolve, or do I have to sustain? How is the scalability? And then you benchmark the business performance. You learn the business practices to develop and avoid. Without your report, they wouldn't know that what are the different business practices they have to avoid. Like, for example, they do the marketing of certain product in a certain channel. Like you are a startup, and you're blindly posting your post on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, without knowing that where your customer is sitting. Now, this report will help you to understand, a competitive intelligence report will help you understand that majority of my businesses are sitting in the medium. Majority of the businesses are sitting in Reddit. I don't have to waste my time posting in Instagram. My Instagram postings are not going to convert money into the business, not going to customer value. Enhancing business stakeholder communication. So when you are doing this, make sure that you're having this communication loop very well set up since the beginning until the end, for the feedbacks going back to you and for the answers going back to them. Let them test it out. Have this rapid testing model. Have this prototypes. Nothing is written on the stone in the data science. As we say, it's always good enough. It's always might. There's nothing like for sure. Now, data story approach for predicting modeling steps. So the data exploration has to be more graphical, but the graphical has to be very pragmatic. Again, boil it down to the ethos, pathos, and logos principle. Have the logic behind it. If there is an outlier, tell them where the outlier lies. Follow the central limit theorem onto your exploratory analysis. It's very, very important. And then you do the feature visualization. Don't show them unnecessary key variables. Show them only what is needed for them to take decisions. If you show them more, they will get confused. Keep them like very focused. And then the model creation. The model creation, you have to make sure that you have this multiple model creation to understand these the error scenarios, and how are you minimizing the error under what scenarios. So you have to do like, are you using an ensemble, or are you using a linear regression? Like, you have to take that's completely another 2 hour. I guess one of the workshops covered that. So that is where this comes in. And then the comparison. So the qualities of the business report has to be, one thing, you have to make the business take decision. So it has to be persuasive. And then it has to be memorable, which means that you're keeping it very simple, compelling, and your credibility. And then you have to engage with them. So connecting to the heart. So you have to make it logical reasoning, which is memorable. Like, not always people will remember the stat, but people will remember what is said in the graph, what is said in the visual. So you keep it memorable using your logos, you make it persuasive by using your ethos, and you make it engaging by using your pathos. So there are different kind of data representation in a story format for different of the business, which we already talked about. If you're a journalist, if you're working for a journalist company, if you're working for an analytics company, if you're working for an oil and gas company, everything has its own way of presenting the data for easy understanding. So if there's a textual data, have these clouds, word clouds and everything. If you have a mixed data, have this facet grids. If you have a numerical data, there's a linear graph is just enough. And then as stock market data, you can have this candlestick charts, and the geographic data can be a map representation. And they have a cheat sheet. If you guys want it, you can take it. I have a problem here. I had to fix it. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? I have 15 minutes for questions. Did you guys like the session? Was my session useful?
Hey, so
Hey,
Santha, thanks a lot for the presentation. It was lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Enjoyment in the chat area. If you have questions for Santha, feel free to drop them in the chat area or in the Q&A area if it's more convenient for you. So Santha could answer your curiosities.
I will send these pitch text to Amalia, and you guys can take it. I'm not sure about the processes. Thank you so much, Carmen.
Yes, you can send them to me. We will load them into the Kodiak SlideShare account, and then they will get to you in the newsletter.
Okay.
I think it will be very useful.
Yeah, Adrian, yes, there is no red. I agree. Is it you're talking about the graph here? I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think
or
so.
Did I... Okay, any questions? Anybody's working on a data science problem right now? Anybody have a question to ask related to it?
We need to have red KPIs.
Okay.
Okay. So,
okay, thank you so much.
I think everything was very clear. And the presentation was very good. So no questions. All right then. Maybe see you tomorrow too during the networking sessions. Maybe we can get to chat more about KPIs and everything.
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Adrian, you can connect with me through my email if you guys want to. My email is in the profile. Thank you so much, guys, for having me, and thank you so much for taking time listening to me. I hope it was useful, and you can take it back to your work. If you find anything interesting, just ping me through my email or to my LinkedIn. Wonderful meeting you all. Thank you so much. Have a great time, and also have a great time at Fueling Innovation tomorrow too. Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you, Santa, for being part of CodeX 2021 and for the very interesting workshop. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Amalia. You take care. Bye. Have a great
You
night.
take care. Bye.